Hey everybody, and welcome. I'm out here at beautiful Evelyn Lake in Yosemite National Park, and today in this episode I am going to be reviewing this SlingFin Crossbow 2 tent. I've had this tent now for about 2 years, and I'm ready to share with you what my thoughts and feelings are on this tent. So I'm going to be talking about the key features, what makes this tent a little bit unique from different comparable tents, as well as then what are my likes and dislikes. All right, so let's get into the key features. First of all, this tent has got a full wall inner body. Basically what that means is that the inner part of the tent here, the wall, has got sil nylon fabric that goes all the way around the tent as well as up on the inner part here. There are mesh points within the doors as well as on the body on the side here, so air can flow through, but you can also seal it up entirely, so it can be completely closed. Now that has a number of specific advantages for things like in the winter when it's really cold and you want to minimize the amount of airflow to just keep your body temperature higher and minimize the effect of wind chill. It's really helpful for that. Also, other conditions not in the winter also really has a lot of benefit. So I go places where it's often really windy and dusty or sandy, and nothing is worse than when you're camping and you get all set up inside at night and the wind is blowing that sand or dust and dirt up into the tent and it gets all over your stuff. And it can also be something that you breathe in. I've had times where with other tents I've had to actually sleep with the buff covering my face just because all that stuff is blowing in on me. So don't think of a full body tent as something that can only be used in the winter time. Next key feature of this tent, which is really neat, is something called the WebTruss. It's actually part of the body itself, and essentially what these things are sleeves that you slide the poles through. And it's not just normal sleeves. Once you've got the poles into the sleeve, there are tensioners that enable you to actually tension down the poles inside the sleeve. And as there's tension added to the poles in that sleeve, it actually makes it stronger. So I'm pushing down with all my might right here, and that's as far down as I can push it. Now if I untensioned it, you'd probably see it, maybe have a little less of a tension on there. Granted, these are thick poles. I think they're 10 point some millimeter poles, but that tension effect on there is, I think, patented or definitely unique to this tent. And that can help with, of course, things like snow loading, but it also helps with minimizing the lateral movements as well. Okay, let's move on to ventilation. There's a couple of different vents on this tent as well as on the fly. And so you can see right here on the door itself, there's a vent. It's decent sized and it also can be closed up completely. So you can open and close it on either side. And it obviously helps with air moving in through the crossways of the tent. And then over here on the side here, there's something kind of neat. It's called a through vent. And basically this goes all the way through. There's a way that you can close it off completely on the fly portion as well as on the body. So you can close that, but it's really kind of neat. It actually allows air to flow freely from the inner portion, the body inside of the tent, to the outside. There's essentially a channel which the air can flow out unobstructed. And that just really helps with increasing that airflow, that movement. So it's not necessarily mesh only way to get out of that spot there. And then also on the fly portion, there's these kickstands, and basically when you zipper shut the fly portion here, you can add these kickstands in, and what that does is it basically just pops out that portion and allows air to flow through there. So on the fly portion there are 3 vents, as well as on the inner body there's basically the 2 doors and then the through vent. So it has pretty good ventilation compared to other 4-season or challenging condition tents like this. Okay, so in terms of the inside of the tent, the storage and things like that, there are 8 mesh pockets surrounding the various spots of the tent, big one on the foot end and then some on the other side, as well as then some in the top. That really helps with organization. Keeping things up off the ground can also help with airing those things out. There's also a lot of tie-outs, so places where you can attach line and then have stuff hanging from that line, lights, whatever, right? Your clothes, your socks that you want to dry out. There's just a ton of tie outs. And then there are also tie outs, and it comes with internal guy lines. And basically what these internal guy lines do is they attach to the pole area of the tent structure, and then they attach to the other corner. And when they're tensioned, what that does is it actually increases the rigidity of the tent even further. Okay, another key feature of this tent is the fly itself. It has a thicker material compared to their Portal 2, this more summertime tent. That can just help with that strength. There are also a lot of tie outs on this tent for the various places that you would want to secure it. There's additional ones on the fly doors, just a lot of tie outs for just helping to keep the tent stable. I've also added my own guy lines. The guy lines that come with it, I don't really like. I like these yellow ones that I have my own line that I use. I've also done my not so patented trick here to attach the guy line to both of these tie outs, and then using a little stainless steel ring enabling me to tie it out to a single anchor point. This enables me to just have the strongest possible setup, minimizing again that blowing effect or blowing back and forth. Another key feature, which is, I don't know if it's unique to SlingFin, but they apparently I think do it on all of their tents, is they've actually got backup zipper pulls. Here's the zipper pull that I'm using right now, and there are actually two zipper pulls right here that are behind a little guard. And if I had a failure of one of these zipper pulls, essentially what I would do is I would cut that piece of fabric, I would slide this broken zipper pull out of the way, or if I needed to remove it possibly, but once I do that, I then can now use these backup zipper pulls. So all of the places where there are zippers on this tent, there are these backup zipper pulls. And apparently the zipper pull, it's the most common thing to fail on any tent. Another kind of slightly unique thing, I think this also is unique to SlingFin, right here underneath this portion of the fly, there's this thing, I think it's called the Outrigger attachment. And effectively what this is a Velcro pocket or a Velcro strap that you would attach to a trekking pole. And so imagine if I had a trekking pole right here going down to the ground, and then I attached to the guy line. There's also this guy line here that would attach out. Basically, it's like the ability to add additional poles. So, you know, the 3 poles that come with the tent, now you've got trekking poles, there's now 2 more. And I don't have trekking poles with me on this trip, but if they were there, this would just increase that strength even further, right? If you had snow load occurring here, well, sure, eventually that's gonna maybe cause an issue for you. Not so much over there, but with that trekking pole on there, again, it just increases that strength of the tent. Wind, snow can just really help with that. So that's kind of neat. Of course, in the winter time, that'd typically be when I would be carrying poles for like snowshoeing or skiing. So I would actually have poles with me then. What does this tent weigh? It is actually relatively lightweight for all of this. And that was one of the things that drew me to this tent compared to other 4-season tents. A lot of those ones are 8 or 9 pounds. And that's just insane for me to use as a single solo traveler using a 2-person tent. I don't have a second person to like disperse the weight into their pack. So I need my tent to be, again, relatively lightweight. And if you're concerned about weight, the WebTruss can be removed, and that can save you a few ounces. Things like that little Velcro strap under here, you know, save you a gram by removing that as well. I'm not so much concerned about weight on this trip, so I brought all that stuff with me. I've not experienced too difficult of conditions. It actually rained out here last night, had a bunch of hail for a little while, but not too bad in terms of wind. So it held up actually really well on this trip and performed great in that rain. But the WebTruss being removable, of course, saves you weight. Another thing that you can do is you can actually purchase a mesh inner body. So they actually sell as an accessory a mesh inner body that's designed to work with this tent. And the mesh inner body actually looks almost identical to the Portal 2 mesh inner body. So they're not interchangeable. Take a look at that if you're starting to think about getting into the SlingFin system of tents. Instead of maybe buying 2 tents, you could actually buy 1 and have kind of this interchangeable system, which is pretty neat. Okay, let's get into my likes on this tent. First of all, the strength of this tent. That's paramount for me, is to have a strong tent when I'm going out into those winter weather conditions, or if I'm in the summertime going out into those windy conditions. Another thing that I like about this tent from, again, my prior tent, the Big Agnes Shield 2 wintertime tent, is having these 2 doors. It might not seem that important for a single solo traveler to have 2 doors, but it actually is, in my opinion. For one, I can open both doors and just get way more cross breeze flowing through there. If I only had air coming in through one way, well, you can't get as much air movement flowing through. Also, if I'm cooking on one side and I want to get out on the other or whatever, right? Sometimes there's just reasons to get in or out on the other side. And then also I just get more expansive views. I want to be able to look out wherever I'm going and just get those better views. The doors also open fairly wide, as you can see here. So I don't generally have any issues getting in and out of the tent. Another thing that I like about this tent is the color. You don't always get a choice of color when you're buying a tent, and they don't really offer different colors, but I like this color. It's great for, I think, blending in. As you can see right here, I'm amongst this white colored granite and the trail is over in that direction. I don't really want to be seen necessarily, so this helps me to blend in the areas that I'm at. Also, the white color when it's sunny and it's not really cold out here today, this doesn't attract as much of that sun, and so it keeps the tent a little bit cooler, I think. Last thing that I like, and isn't necessarily a thing about this tent, but maybe the company SlingFin. I actually like their warranty coverage. I actually had 2 issues with this tent when I bought it. First time I took it out in Yosemite was mild conditions, no rain or anything like that, and so I did not use the fly. But when I was set up over that first night, there was some condensation, and the thing that I noticed was basically this spot. You could see the water vapor being condensed directly onto this, what looked like a spill had occurred on the fabric at the factory. And so it was basically, instead of repelling water, it was drawing it in and then causing water to condense and then drip down. Nowhere else on the tent was there this issue happening. Contacted SlingFin, and they sent me a new body. I also had an issue with one of the zippers on one side on the fly. Now that I've got new body and fly, these pieces I've had 0 issues with in terms of reliability, stitching, zippers, all of that is all very well done in terms of the quality. So the fact is, if you ever have an issue with the tent that is possibly something that's like manufacturing related, they are absolutely going to stand behind that, and I'm really pleased with their responsiveness just as a company as well. All right, so let's get into what are my dislikes. I've actually only got 3 dislikes. They're relatively minor. However, I would love to see these things get addressed or somehow improved in a future iteration. So first dislike is on the door here, and this one's again kind of small. I talked about how I like the vent on the door. Now, my point here is that I would love it to be even more. I'd like to have it be better. It would be great if this was actually a full circle or somehow close to a full circle coming down. This would just allow for more ventilation to come through situations where maybe you're in milder conditions and it's buggy and you need to actually physically close the door and utilize the mesh. Would just allow more ventilation to flow through there. So second thing that I dislike about the tent is actually again on the door here, and I can actually show you here on the fly because it's the same issue or concern. This toggle right here is not the correct size for this line. Basically, the toggle is a good size in terms of the physical size of the toggle because it needs to stay within this loop here. However, the inner portion, the little hole that the line flows through, is not sized appropriately. I can just pull that off right there. Now, I've tied some additional knots here at the end to try to address that, but it doesn't necessarily work that great. I'd need to tie 4 or 5 knots here or whatever. So I think that they should find a different toggle that has a smaller hole for the line to flow through here. Not a huge problem, but something that, again, I'd like to see improved. Okay, last dislike, and I've talked again about this one on the portal too, is on the head end here. I've actually attached some shock cord to this tie out. And on that shock cord on the other end of it is a mitten hook. And that mitten hook basically attaches to the body, the inner body. And when you then stake it out like I have here, that pulls that portion of the tent outward. And so as you're stuffing things into those mesh pockets, what will happen is that they'll sag, and that can sag down on your quilt or your sleeping bag. It's also, I think, further amplified on this side because that's where the largest pocket is, and so it's more likely to sag even on this side. So it just doesn't make sense. I mean, SlingFin has a zillion tie outs on this tent. They're missing one tie out on the inner body right over here. Someday I'm gonna probably figure out how to use a sewing kit, and maybe I'll just add my own tie out on there and just close this issue on my own. Now, in summary, I highly recommend this tent. It's a great tent in terms of having something that will work in those challenging weather conditions, whether it's wind, snow, whatever, right? This tent will take you there and keep you protected. It's very easy to use, very easy to set up. I think it will last me a long time, and if I ever have any issues with it, I'm confident that SlingFin will take care of me as well. So that is it for this video, and as always, thanks for watching and happy trails.